After leveled all the 5 classes to level 100, I am, and maybe also you are wondering about what to play with all the changes coming into Season 2. First, let's look at the bug fixes to the classes that I have played in the past. Druid. With the fix of Earthen Bulwark not to scale with the target house, you won't be able to do as much damage as before, not to mention the damage bucket nerf, both to vulnerable and critical strike damage, which I will mention later. Sorcerer. With Hydra's burning damage not to scale with the target's house, it definitely will not do as much damage. However, they also give a huge boost to Hydra's damage to compensate. We'll see if this is a rip or not in the new season. Barbarian. The bonus damage granted while Berserking is active is now multiplicative instead of additive. This is great news for those who want to play a Barbarian. The Whirlwind Bleed build is going to be insane in Season 2. Secondly, we need to take a look at the damage bucket change. The biggest change is that vulnerable damage and the critical strike damage are now still multiplicative damage. However, the damage has been capped with vulnerable damage at 20% and the critical strike damage at 50%. The stats over these caps will not contribute to your multiplicative damage anymore, but being counted as additive damage instead. Here is an example of a level 82 character which will be used to explain the impact of the damage bucket change before and after Season 1. Here is an example of how damage is calculated in Season 1 before the change. Let's say we have a base damage 2300. Weapon speed is a multiplier that we can multiply by this base damage by this number, and then we further multiply the damage by each category in the multiplicative damage bucket here, which are critical strike damage and also vulnerable damage. And for all the damage types in this additive damage bucket in the script box, for example, damage to close, damage with poison, damage with crowd control, etc. are all additive damage, so we can add all the damage from this bucket together and multiply by the damage further. So that is why we roughly come out of this final damage, which is 67k. Now for Season 2, everything stays the same. However, we have a cap of critical damage at 50% and also a cap of vulnerable damage at 20%. And all of the damage differences of here are basically go into this category called critical damage overload and also vulnerable damage overload. For example, in Season 1, if we have 130 critical damage, in Season 2, this is capped at 50%, and for the rest of the 80%, it goes to this critical damage overload as additive damage instead of multiplicative damage. Only with this capping system in Season 2, our damage now is at around 30k, so this is roughly a 50% damage lost. This is a lot. However, in Season 2, they increased the highest item power from 820 to 920. This will roughly give us a 45% base damage increase across the board. So with only this change of the item power, we are getting a 40k damage, but that's still a 36% damage lost, which is still a lot. Next, let's take a look at the damage over time in Season 2. Let's say everything stays the same. However, as the DoT build, we don't have any critical strike damage. We keep the vulnerable damage the same. However, damage with core and also damage with damage type such as cutthroat or marksman became a multiplicative damage type. So instead of getting a lot of vulnerable damage or critical strike damage, let's get more damage with core and a little bit more damage with cutthroat everywhere on the gear and also the Paragon board. We're now at a final damage of 75k, which is instead of getting a damage lost, we're actually getting a 12% damage gain. And as you know, with all of these nerf to critical strike damage and vulnerable damage, they are actually going to bring the monster level and the output down. By how much, I don't know, but you can see they're bringing the monster level down, and we are gaining a damage output for our DoT build. So this is really strong. This change is very easy to do. As you can see that I don't have any core damage on my crossbow here. You can replace vulnerable damage with the core damage. You can also get more core damage nodes instead of the vulnerable damage nodes on the Paragon boards. I will probably use a poison imbued twisting blades build as my Season 2 starter. Here's an overview of the gear. Helmet, chest, gloves, pants, boots, You can use the regular boots as well. Crossbow, amulet. Definitely there's not going to be a heart in the new season. We can replace this with others, and also the vampire power. Another ring. Ring number 2. One-hander. And another one-hander. If you want to see more content like this, please smash the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to never miss a video. See you in the next one.